Okay, let's dive into this source you sent over. It's some excerpts from a document titled The Creation of Woman and Her Tasks.
Right.
And today, we're focusing specifically on how this document interprets Genesis chapter 2. The creation of woman, the roles it lays out.
Exactly. Our goal here is really just to pull out the core ideas, the main takeaways from this specific viewpoint for you.
And it gets interesting right away, doesn't it? Because it sort of pushes back against a really common idea.
It really does.
It argues that Eve's creation wasn't something Adam asked for. Not at all.
Yeah, the source is quite clear on that. It highlights Genesis 2.18, where God says, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him."
So the emphasis is totally on God's initiative there.
Totally. What this source really hammers home is that Adam, he never actually requested a companion. It frames it as God observing Adam, seeing he's alone, and then God decides to act, making her for Adam.
That divine initiative is like central.
It's a cornerstone of this interpretation, definitely.
And then it goes into the actual creation process, Genesis 2.21-22. And it picks up on this detail about the deep sleep God caused to fall on Adam.
And the spin here, or the interpretation, is quite specific.
It suggests God basically had to make Adam stop working because he was so focused.
That's exactly the reading. Adam so engrossed in his tasks, God induces this deep sleep. A forced pause, you could say.
Okay. And then woman is made from his rib.
Right. And then, according to this text, she's brought to Adam.
Ah, and they draw a parallel there.
Yes, explicitly. Just like the animals are brought to Adam earlier for him to name them. So she's brought to him, and he names her.
So the implication is Eve didn't pick Adam.
Correct. That's a key point the source makes. She was made for him, presented to him. And this interpretation asserts that it's the man who gets the choice in this setup.
Interesting. And this idea of connection or maybe belonging, it seems to go further.
It does. The document looks at the phrase bone of his bones and flesh of his flesh.
Which describes Eve's origin from Adam.
Yes, but this interpretation extends it. It suggests this phrase signifies that she, and then by extension any children, belong to the man. They originate from him, are part of his unit.
Wow, okay. Then there's Genesis 2.24 about a man leaving his parents and clinging to his wife, becoming one flesh. How does this source handle that?
It takes a very, very strong stance on one flesh.
How so?
It basically argues that this means a total giving up of your individual self within the marriage. You're no longer an I.
You're just one, like literally a single entity.
Essentially, yes, that's the interpretation presented. No more individual identity in that specific context.
And you can see how that view would feed into the roles and tasks discussion.
Absolutely. It connects directly. The source points out Adam had his own individual tasks initially.
Tend the garden, keep it, maim the animals.
Right.
Those were his jobs.
His jobs. And the woman's task, as interpreted here, wasn't independent but secondary. Specifically, it was to help Adam complete his tasks.
Okay, so helping with his work.
Initially, yes. The document suggests this meant tending and keeping the garden alongside him while he was busy naming animals.
And then later, presumably after the garden.
It evolves, yes.
Yeah.
It shifts more towards the domestic sphere in this interpretation. Maintaining the house, cleaning, cooking, raising the children, all in support of the man's primary responsibilities.
The source also seems to put a lot of weight on the man's readiness before marriage.
Oh, definitely. There's a strong encouragement for men to get their life sorted, their domain established and maintained before even considering marriage.
Why is it so emphasized?
Because the perspective here is that the woman comes into what God has already given the man. She enters his established life, his domain.
And her role is then?
To maintain and upkeep that domain, what he has already built or been given.
Okay, so let's sort of recap the core message from this document. It's presenting a very specific reading of Genesis, right?
Extremely specific. It emphasizes God acting alone in creating woman, specifically for the man.
She's then presented to the man, who has the choice.
Yes. And there's this idea of the family unit originating from and belonging to the man.
Leading to distinct roles, where the woman's primary function is supporting the man's tasks and maintaining the life he's already established.
That's the essence of this interpretation.
So, pulling back, just focusing purely on what this text argues, it really makes you think.
It certainly does.
It raises a pretty big question for you listening to this. How does this ancient interpretation of roles, of identity within a relationship, as laid out here, how does that sit alongside or maybe challenge modern ideas about partnership.
Yeah, ideas about individual identities, shared responsibilities. How does this view compare? That's definitely something to mull over after this deep dive.